What's going on, Washington fans? Welcome to Bleacher Report. I'm Josh Taylor, and today was the first day of OTAs for the Washington Commanders. So, of course, there's a lot to talk about, not just some on-the-field stuff, but off-the-field stuff as well. We will stay up to date on everything with OTAs starting, and then it gets into minicamp and training camp and so on. But the season's coming up faster than we thought it would. But I'm excited to finally start talking about some actual football going on with practice and stuff like that. We had a lot of new arrivals. A lot of the rookies at camp. They already did like their rookie mini camp and stuff like that. And the team's gone through phase 1 and phase 2. But this is really the first time that the team has participated in this phase 3 with OTAs where they have pads on, they have helmets on and stuff like that. They're actually going through a lot more than they have that they're able to in the first 2 phases of their offseason practices. So I wanted to jump into it, talk about some major headlines, and then also some things that I'm really looking for as OTAs continues to go through the process. And if you want some more information, make sure you follow me on social media at Josh Taylor FB, especially on X or Twitter, whatever you call it. But let's start with probably the biggest thing, and that was some absences. There was 3 names today of players that were not at OTAs. The first one was Terry McLaurin, of course, not really a surprise, but then also 2 vets that did not show up to voluntary OTAs, by the way, and that's going to be a major part of what I talk about with their absences. With Laramie Tunzel, the new left tackle on the offensive line, and Marshawn Lattimore, who we traded for last season. So I have some thoughts that I'll talk about with all of them. Let's start with Terry. Terry, this is something that, we went through, what was it, 2022, with his contract and, how he missed some time. And he came out and said, like, look, I don't want to miss time. I want to be out there with the team. I want to be out there practicing. That's what I want to do. But this is just the business side of things. This is something that we do every single off season. And you see the same reaction on social media, fans freaking out. Oh my God, Terry's not there. Terry's holding out. This is not a holdout of any sort. This is not a holdout is Trey Hendrickson. That's a holdout. Publicly displaying your frustration and even like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins demanded a trade last year before, he got paid not too long ago. But this is not a holdout. This is a business side of football. Shout out to Buddy Baker. He's a hell of an agent, really good agent. That's Terry's agent. But I promise you, your job as an agent is to not only get your player paid, but to also protect your player financially and make sure they're not in bad situations. So if I'm an agent and I have Terry McLaurin who's looking for a big deal, and we'll talk about some numbers and stuff like that, for me, I don't want you out there, practicing and doing these walkthroughs and stuff for a voluntary OTA. Now, mandatory minicamp is June 10th, 11th, and 12th. So June 10th, mandatory minicamp, that's the date you need to remember. That's the freak out period. If Terry is not paid by then we can start talking about it being more of an issue of like, why is he not paid yet? What's going on? Now he's starting to miss some of the mandatory time. Once again, not to him. It's Terry's not the kind of guy that just wants to not practice. And we all know that. But once again, this is a business side of things. You don't want to have something that happens at practice. You don't want to get hurt. You don't want to get, tweak something to where it can really throw a wrench into those contract talks. That's the last thing you want to happen. So for me, I'm not freaking out about the Terry extension until June 10th. And I talked about this recently on a live stream I did. There's a couple things that could really, I don't want to say persuade, but a couple things that could be some hurdles that they're trying to get over with Terry's contract. And the first thing is, like, Washington doesn't have a ton of money, but also what Adam Peters likes to do, especially like a 3-year deal, which I think Terry's projected to get a 3-year deal at this point in his career with his age and everything. But for Terry's deal for 3 years, what Adam usually does is that first year of that contract is usually very favorable for Washington. He does, a smart way of building these contracts and and getting that deal done, still getting your guarantee, still making the money you deserve. But it really helps Washington as they go through this roster rebuild, which is going to take a few years. I mean, we saw how much they did last year and they did some more this offseason. But that first year of the contract usually is very favorable. I mean, we saw it for Austin Eckler, we saw it for Nick Allegretti, saw it for Dorrance Armstrong. A lot of those guys that they paid in that first free agency period, those 3-year deals, you saw that first year really work in their favor. And there's a couple reasons why they probably are trying to do that again right now. What if Washington isn't done signing free agents? And there's something very important to think about. There's a couple of younger guys out there, I'm sure, like, Justin Blackmon's a younger safety. He would probably get more than a 1-year deal. He'd probably get like a 2-3 year deal. If you're looking for safety help, that's your guy. But think about some of these other vets that they've been connected to with Justin Simmons, some of these older guys, and then think on the edge, players that have been connected to Washington, since the draft has ended, with Von Miller, Jadeveon Clowney, Zadarius Smith. A lot of those free agents, those are 1-year rentals. You're not paying Clowney some 2-3 year deal. You're not paying Zadarius Smith some 2-3 year deal, and you're not paying Von Miller some 2-3 year deal. So you don't really have that ability to, once again, backload these contracts. If you're going to sign a free agent like Clowney, for instance, let's just use him. Say Washington has plans to sign Jadeveon Clowney at some point. And there's another side to look at this that I'll talk about. But it's a 1-year deal. So say, I'm just throwing out a random number, say it's a 1-year, $10 million deal. That is completely different if their cap hit's going to be, let's say, $9-10 million this season, compared to if they were to get like a 3-year deal, roughly worth the same amount, and it drops down to like a $5 million cap hit for this season coming up. That's a big difference. So that's something you have to think about. But then also a lot of these free agents, fans are also saying, how come Washington hasn't signed anybody yet? Like, what's going on? They haven't signed an edge yet. A lot of these free agents are not trying to report to OTAs. A lot of these guys, Zadarius Smith, Jadeveon Clowney, they're not trying to sign right now. They're in Spain with their family. They're in Miami with their buddies. They're living their lives right now. They want to sign right before training camp. Maybe like 2-3 weeks before training camp. Maybe, that last period before training camp, so they can really get acclimated with the team. But they've been in the league for a long time. There's not much they have to do besides just learn the defense and do their job. That's it. We already have players missing OTAs. Myles Garrett was not at OTAs for the Browns after getting his long deal. I mean, his big deal that he got. Vets don't really report to OTAs. These guys that have been in the league for a long time. Why risk it? And, we didn't have Marshawn Lattimore and Laramie Tunsil there. I'm going to talk about them here in a second. But for Terry, I think that's something Washington is trying to navigate. You don't want to do a deal. And this is like, once again, this is not saying that this is persuading whether they extend Terry or not, because I think they obviously extend Terry McLaurin. I'm 95% sure they will. And I think it gets done before June 10th. But what you have to think about is if you get this Terry deal done and you just kind of like, all right, we got it done, we checked it off, but it didn't go the way we hoped with that first year of the deal. It just wasn't structured correctly. You might be checking yourself out of an opportunity to get one of those edges either now or later in the season if someone gets hurt or something like that, to where you're in a bad situation. And Lance Newmark said it after the draft when he met with the media, that he has a board of names that he sees every day when he goes in his office of guys that are free agents, and he checks in with them. And like I said, a lot of those guys don't want to get signed yet. It's just, they're like, hey, I need some more time. I want some more time in the offseason with family. I want to recover some more. I'm still training and stuff like that, but I'm just not ready to report. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, it's a different thing with a quarterback, I feel like, but, for an edge or a safety or any other position really besides quarterback, you really can just wait before you get signed. You can wait before you report to these things. So I think it's just one of those business things. Washington wants to get that deal done with Terry, but they have a lot of other possibilities that they can't just knock themselves out of. You don't want to be too reckless, but they still want to get that deal done with Terry. Obviously, Terry is a franchise piece, coming off a career year. This whole thing of like, oh, well, we need to see if Terry really deserves to get paid. That's insane. Absolute crazy talk. Yes, Terry deserves to be paid, and I think he will. And by the way, Spot Track put out a tweet saying possibilities for Terry. He says on X, wide receiver Terry McLaurin skipping Commanders OTAs projects toward a 3-year, $93 million extension in our system. That is 31 mil average per year. DK Metcalf's 33 mil average per year, 60 mil guaranteed is a realistic landing spot here. So what he's saying is that he projects on their system for that 3-year, 31 mil a year basis, but don't be surprised if it ends up landing at DK Metcalf's 33. So that might be where the difference is. Maybe Washington is at 31, Terry's at 33. Maybe they meet somewhere in the middle. Maybe Terry's at 34. Who knows? No one knows what those conversations look like, but that's just telling you what really to expect. But he wasn't at OTAs after he missed that last part of phase 2. I think there was one day that he missed, but he was at everything else, phase 1 and early of phase 2. But that's Terry. I know I talked on that for a good bit, but I think that's one of the more important ones. I think that's the biggest thing that people are worried about right now. I think Terry will get paid. I mean, I could see him in that 32, 33 mil range. I think it lands somewhere in the middle. I say even 32 and a half is probably my projection. 3-year, 32 and a half mil per year. And I think it gets done before mandatory minicamp. I think it gets done before June 10th through 12th. That's best case scenario in my opinion. But do not freak out about this. Don't stop the Terry slander. Just don't worry about it. Focus on the guys that are there right now. And like I said, 2 other guys that weren't there, Laramie Tunzel and Marshawn Lattimore. Both guys are, once again, these are veterans that don't usually go to OTAs. Marshawn didn't really do it with the Saints ever, and then Laramie Tunzel never really did it with the Texans. There's a big group of vets that have not reported to OTAs for their team yet. It's voluntary. It's not mandatory. Especially at offensive line, you're really not doing anything of value at these OTAs. Like wide receivers, cool, you're working with your quarterback. You're kind of building that connection. Debo was there. Loved seeing that. Didn't surprise me. He's been at everything since he arrived in Ashburn. But for Larry Tunzel, maybe he wants a new contract too. Not really, getting into that too much yet. But, maybe he wants to rework a new deal. Marshawn Lattimore wasn't there. He is a vet that usually doesn't go to these things as well, like I said. But also, he doesn't have much guaranteed. He has no guarantee next year. So maybe he wants to rework a little bit of his contract. Who knows? So we'll keep an eye on that. Maybe Tunzel, maybe Lattimore want to get deals done too. And maybe that influences the Terry thing too. Maybe that's something that's just a part of this Sudoku puzzle of contracts and salary cap that Adam Peters is trying to work on. So I want people to think about that. You have outside free agents that Washington might want to sign right now or before training camp. And then you also have new additions like Laramie Tunzel you have to worry about, like Marshawn Lattimore. Maybe they want to restructure their deals. I know people are going to be like, well, Laramie Tunzel hasn't played here yet, or Marshawn Lattimore didn't look good at times last year. Same with Debo. Debo, he's got 1 year on this contract. So maybe they want to put themselves in a good position to sign him to a long-term deal next year if he performs well this year, which I think he will. So those were the 3 guys that weren't at minicamp, or not at OTAs, not minicamp, which starts June 10th. But I'm not concerned about any of those. Would I have liked to seen Marshawn there? Sure. Would I have liked to seen Laramie Tunzel there? Sure. I knew Terry wasn't going to be there. But I'll say this last thing about Marshawn Lattimore. For so many fans that say, oh, Marshawn's hurt all the time, he looked bad, why can't he stay healthy? It was the same fans that are complaining that he's not at a voluntary a voluntary practice, like walkthroughs. But God forbid he would tweak something or get hurt. Fans would be like, oh my God, here we go again, he's hurt. But since he's not there, fans are going to be like, oh, he looked bad last year. He needs to be there. He needs to be getting every rep possible. I'm not worried about it. If he doesn't show up to mandatory minicamp, that's what I'm concerned about, these 3 guys. Even Terry, that's what I'm like, okay, we need to get this deal done if he's missing mandatory minicamp, which he doesn't want to do. So Laramie Tunzel, Marshawn Lattimore, Terry McLaurin, I'm fine with them missing a voluntary walkthrough practice. So I'm not stressing out that. But somebody that was absolutely there was Jayden Daniels, and we got to hear from Jayden after practice with the media as well. It's on the team's page. Loved hearing from him. You know, he was laughing about how people have talked about how he's gotten bigger. He said, yeah, he's in the weight room. Like, he's like, you know, I'll just let people talk about it. It's whatever. Didn't like say like, oh, I've put on 10 pounds of muscle this off. Nothing like that. He's just saying, I think it's funny that so many people are talking about it, but it's just whatever. But if there's one thing I'm excited about this season is now that Jayden isn't a rookie, we should be able to hear a lot more from him in front of the media this season, which great. I want more Jayden Daniels as much as possible. And there's a lot that was talked about, you know, not only his size, but, you know, he's throwing to some new guys. You know, Gallup is a guy that hasn't been talked about a lot either, but then also some of these rookies, you know, Jacory Krosky-Merritt at running back, but Jalen Lane at wide receiver. And then the addition of Deebo Samuel, they're getting work in and just getting that connection going. So like I was talking about with the group of the guys that weren't there, these are the positions where I want them to really be at OTAs. I don't want, you know, Deebo missing OTA and minicamp and then just showing up at training camp. Like, that's not ideal. So seeing Deebo there day one, he's been at, like I said, everything. Deebo has been perfect since he showed up. He looks like he's in great shape. I mean, just seeing some videos of Deebo as well. Everything looks awesome for Deebo. I think he's going to have an insane year. But Jayden, just even the small, you know, videos we've gotten of him throwing the ball looks so good. And Cliff talked to the media as well. Cliff said that he looks stronger, not even just like physically, but his arm strength even looks stronger. That's scary. So Jayden that threw that, I mean, we saw how far he could throw it on the Hail Mary. That was not a short Hail Mary by any means. He let that thing rip. And then we just saw the deep passes to Terry throughout the whole season. Go route, go route, go route. Terry was the go route leader in yardage this past season. So he's a go route merchant now, which is a great thing to be. But we saw that arm strength and what that looks like. And the fact that it's even stronger now, man, I am excited. I could talk about Jayden for literally the remainder of the video. But just seeing him at practice, seeing him, he does look bigger. I see more muscle mass. I see more density in his body. And, you know, Cliff talked about that for a little bit too. It wasn't like a thing of like, oh, Jayden, you need to do this offseason. You got to get bigger this offseason. It was Jayden being like, all right, I know what I need to do. I'm getting older. You know, I'm growing up in the league. I'm a sophomore now in the league. I'm a second-year quarterback. And Cliff said, you know, he knows what he has to do to protect his body. I mean, we got a tough schedule. It's a long schedule. You're going to Spain. You're, you know, playing on Christmas. You're, you know, 4 straight NFC East games in the season, competitive football every single week. There's a target on our back now. Like, he knows what he has to do. The league knows Jayden Daniels is the top 5 quarterback in the league. So the fact that what I love the most about him is that he already acts like he's like a 10-year vet. This does not even as a rookie, he did not seem like a rookie at all. You know, with the VR training, with the maturity, how he spoke, how he leads the team, how he plays on the field. He never once looked like a rookie, in my opinion. And now we get a second-year Jayden, and everyone's talking, oh, well, maybe there could be a sophomore slump. There could be a sophomore surge. I think that should be more of the story of Jayden could be even better. And, you know, Cliff also talked about how, you know, they're not the sexy ones of the team, but building up that offensive line helps open up the playbook so much more. So he said, you know, getting Laramie Tunzel, getting Josh Connerly Jr., and just, you know, even really good depth on the offensive line. He said that in his time with the media today is that it just fully opens up the playbook for him. So there's a lot of different things there to be excited about. Yes, you add, you know, the offensive line and stuff like that. And something else Dan Quinn talked about in his press conference, John Keim tweeted this out. Dan Quinn on other teams having a full year of tape on Jayden Daniels. Dan Quinn said there's a lot of the playbook people haven't seen. So that's something that Cliff was talking about. Last year with injuries on the offensive line, not the best weapons outside of Terry at wide receiver, not much of a run game second half of the season. You're able to open up the playbook now. So he said there's a lot of the playbook people haven't seen featuring new players in different spots. So, if you're going back and you're watching, the offense last year, yeah, you'll be able to pull out some nuggets. But don't expect to just see that same offense. You can see some, similarities for sure, but I think we are going to be, I don't want to say we were at like a beginner level last year, but I think we're going from like that beginner intermediate to now intermediate, like expert level, because you do have, Debo, you do have Jalen Lane, you do have Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt in the run game. You do have Laremy Tunsil, Josh Connolly Jr., and just an overall better team on offense, the line, the weapons, the run game, everything. And you have a better Jayden, who, like, is that even possible? It is. So I think you're just going to see a completely different offense next year when it comes to playbook and just being able to open the door on everything. That's dangerous when Cliff gets to open up that playbook fully. And I'm excited about that. Speaking of the offensive line, real quick, Dan Quinn also said that Sam Cosmi is doing excellent in his recovering from the knee surgery and is off to a really strong start and hitting all the markers he's supposed to now. Just keeping up with like his Instagram. I know it's not really doing much, but I see him like out of his cast, like he's walking, he's doing stuff. I think best case scenario, if you can get Sam Cosmi back, 100% playing on the field by like end of October, I think you're cooking with grease. Like for me before, it was December, maybe the whole year, because of how late, he got hurt and how bad it was. I mean, if he can start week 1, that's fan-freaking-tastic. But for me, if I can get Cosmi, let's just say middle or end of October, that's still way better than what I expected. But in the meantime, now you have that depth to really fill things out. So good news on Cosmi. Happy that he is progressing, and just the offense as a whole seems like it's on another level. And we'll talk about the defense too. Zach Selby, who is one of my favorite people that covers the team. Honestly, I love how he reports, and I'm glad we have him. Trey Amos, he says, is looking pretty good already. Got a pick earlier and almost had another on a pass from Hartman. So if you follow me, you know that I have really high expectations for Trey Amos. Trey was one of my favorite guys that I talked to at the Senior Bowl. A little bit of bias considering he used to play at Alabama and then he transferred to Ole Miss. But throughout the whole process, I always said Trey Amos is the epitome of a Dan Quinn corner. Like, he is perfect fit. Him and Maxwell Hairston, in my opinion, were like the two best fits at corner for Washington. And I mean, I'm still just like a kid in the candy store. And the fact that we have Trey Amos and the fact that we got him in the second round, it didn't have to take him there at 30 or 29. I mean, it's just insane to me. I truly think that Trey Amos has everything it takes to be a real possibility for Defensive Rookie of the Year. And I know that's insane, but I think what's going to help is, Mikey Samuelsson going back into the slot where he, naturally played at Michigan, looked fantastic on the outside last year. And then if Marshawn Lattimore can get really healthy and stay healthy for the whole season, that's going to lock down one side of the field. So it's going to put attention on Trey Amos. Trey Amos is going to get targeted because you don't want to go to Mikey Samuelsson. You don't want to go to Marshawn. You want to go to the Rook. So I think Trey Amos was really going to have his chances one-on-one out in space. It could be zone. It could be man coverage, but it's you and the wide receiver. And I think Trey Amos is going to have a lot of opportunities to get interceptions, pass breakups, and just add to that resume. And I know maybe people like, hit the brakes, Josh. Defensive Rookie of the Year is kind of crazy to say, but I don't think so. I really don't think so. I think it's there for Trey because he does fit Dan Quinn so well, but also his playing style. He is flashy out there on defense, and I think he will have the opportunities to be able to at least put up a fight and say, hey, I should be in that conversation by the end of the year. Marshawn wasn't getting targeted. Mikey Samerstill wasn't getting targeted. I got targeted a ton. I didn't allow like many catches at all, no touchdowns, whatever stats end up being. But I have so high hopes for Trey Amos. It's ridiculous. And for me, I just want to talk about as we, end this one, the last few minutes here, the things I'm really looking for, not only just the rest of OTAs, but then also mandatory minicamp. Obviously, like I said, the three guys showing up, Terry, Tunzel, and Lattimore. Can't wait to see just the whole team out there. But outside of that, I'm watching, I'd say, three different things heavily, even up to training camp, preseason, everything. I talked a lot about the offensive line. How does it sort out by the end of all this? Now, we know in camp and practice and training camp especially, we'll see a lot of rotations. We'll see Coleman at right tackle. We'll see like Connerly Jr. at right tackle. We'll see Wiley at right tackle. We'll see others at guard. Like we will see a lot. There will be a lot of competitions. There'll be a lot of moving pieces around, seeing who goes where, seeing who's playing well at what position. Dan Quinn will make you earn your spot. He will make you compete. So Josh Connerly Jr., don't just chalk him up as a right tackle. He has to earn that spot from now to the end of training camp to preseason to until week 1, and he's a starter at right tackle. Same with Coleman, same with Wiley. Does somebody take Nick Allegretti's spot at left guard? Who fills in at right guard until Cosme comes back? There's a lot to watch on the offensive line. So that's one storyline I'm looking for. Is the offensive line, how does it settle out? Who wants that position? Secondly, defensive line. I can't wait to see Javon Kinlaw. I don't think he's been talked about since we signed him. I can't wait to see what juice he brings in that interior spot. And don't be surprised if he, lines up a little bit more outside. It's like that 4-eye technique just inside the tackle. I'm not putting him out there like 7 and 9. Deron Payne did a good bit last year. They had him at 7 tech a couple times, at DN a couple times last season, which surprised me, but they might do that again this year. But I want to see the defensive line. I want to see Javonte Jean-Baptiste. The door of opportunity is there. And I saw some really good flashes out of him last season that really draw me to believe that there is a possibility that he can have a bigger impact, more snap count this season. I want to see how he's progressing, how he's developing, throughout this process with camp and training camp and everything in preseason. But I'm just saying, I think Dorrance Armstrong is going to be on the one side. I think Dietrich Wise is a big improvement on the other side, especially when it comes to stopping the run. Dante Fowler could not stop the run. It was like a runny nose on a toddler last year. It just wasn't good. So I think you have Dietrich Wise falling in now. That's going to get better. But still behind them, Clellan Ferrell, like I said, Javonte Jean-Baptiste, Jacob Martin. I mean, there's some bodies, but I want somebody to step up and say, I want this. This is my competition to win. And I think Javonte Jean-Baptiste has my early vote to do that. And then one more storyline that I'm watching as we end this one, it's a safety spot. And the reason I say that is because I like Quan Martin, had two surgeries on his shoulder last year. And or this past year, he had 2 injuries on his shoulder last year, but he had the surgeries recently, like when the season ended. I think Quan Martin has an opportunity to really break out this season. Had the big interception against the Lions in the playoffs, big time game, big time moment. That's the plays I want to see on defense. Who's making those plays? Quan Martin made one. The other side, Will Harris at strong safety. He's smaller than Chin was, so he's going to move a little bit better. Is he as much of a thumper as Jeremy Chin? Is he going to stop the run to the ability? Maybe. We'll see. But I do expect the coverage from Will Harris to be a little bit better than what we saw. But I am so concerned about depth. And for everyone that's telling me, by the way, Gabe Taylor is not on the team. He did not sign with the team. So everyone I see tweeting like, oh, safety, we have Gabe. We don't have Gabe. The depth is Percy Butler, Jeremy Reeves, Tyler Owens, Ben Nickel, and I actually really, really like Robert McDaniel, UDFA out of Jackson State. He's a thumper, 6'2", 205. He can play in the box. He can play a slot corner if he needs to. He did that at Jackson State. I feel really good about him. The team really liked him throughout the process. So don't be surprised if you hear his name a lot in training camp. I'm sure I'll be talking about him when I'm at practice. But for me, I want to see who can step up in that depth. Tyler Owens, the most freak athletic, safety to come out until Nick Amanwari. They both got 10 relative athletic score, perfect scorings, but just insane athletic ability. So I want to see how he develops. And then Kane Madrano, is he going to be getting reps at safety, or is he going to be more so that sub package guy, as a linebacker, or is he going to be more like a box safety and he's out in the coverage in these obvious passing situations, aside from his special teams role, which he'll be good at. So a lot of question marks on the offensive line everywhere. Besides left tackle, Cliff and Quinn have said it plenty of times. Laremy Tunsil's a left tackle. Outside of that, everything's a competition. We know Laremy Tunsil is going to be the left tackle. That's how good he is. They didn't even say Tyler Biotish is the starting center. They said Laremy Tunsil is the left tackle. Everyone else is going to compete. So we'll have that competition throughout the line. But then on the defensive line, who's going to step up? Dron Payne, man. I am begging you to step up. Devontae Jean-Baptiste, I think he's going to break out. I'm excited to see Kinlaw. A second season of Johnny Newton. There's so many things to talk about. So that's what I'll talk about. You won't hear me talk about the name change. You won't hear me talk about these non-football stories when there's so much real storylines going on that need to be talked about more. That's what I do. That's me. We'll talk about the off-the-field stuff like Terry's contract. We'll talk about the absence of Laremy Tunsil and the absence of Marshawn Lattimore. That's fine. But when it comes down to it, there's a lot to talk about with this team. So that the fact that there's people not talking about real storylines that need to be talked about is absolutely insane to me. So stay tuned. We have more real things to talk about here on Bleacher Report, and then also on my YouTube channel, JTFB, and then on social media at Josh Taylor FB. Stay tuned in. OTAs has just kicked off, and pretty much this is it. We're in swing now. The offseason is in swing. And before you know it, it'll be training camp, and the fans will be back together, and it'll be preseason, and then it'll be the regular season. So appreciate y'all watching this video, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.